I started teaching 5th and 6th graders about this, and in other groups too, youth groups and other people in churches. And I've done this talk in a couple of different places. But I'm not a technical expert on paleontology. I'm a hospital CFO. Does everybody know what a CFO is? No, creates funny odors. That's what I do for a living. So I work in a hospital, and I take care of accounting and finance, and this I do for fun. So what I want to do is tell you what I've learned and what has blessed me in looking at the scriptures and looking at dinosaurs and looking at the natural world and what the evolutionists have to say and what the creationists have to say. So you ready to get going? All right. To get started, I want to look at a few pictures of these creatures. Because I agree with Brian, these are beautiful beasts, even though we really don't know what they look like. This one. What one is that? It's an Apatosaurus, yes. Now, the reason I want to look at these pictures is to refresh our memories on what some of these guys look like, but also to get firmly in mind their size, how big they were. Because I think God had a very specific reason to make these creatures. And we like to debate what happened to them, where'd they go, why aren't they here today if they're not. But a more interesting question to me is, why did God put them here to begin with? Only to remove them if indeed they are all gone. So this is an interesting creature. This sucker, 17 feet tall, 76 feet long from head to tail, and the tail was enormous. And this guy would get to be 35 tons. 35 tons in weight. Now, if this guy was a warm-blooded creature, imagine how much this guy needed to eat to keep a body like that moving. Okay, everybody's got to recognize this one, the Triceratops. This was another huge creature. This was of the ceratopsids group. I should specify. This creature here was part of the dinosaur group known as the sauropods. Very distinctive with the long neck, long tail, and a big body in the middle. This guy, the Triceratops, is one of the ceratopsids. A little bit different classification of the dinosaurs, but still 10 feet tall. He'd be over our heads to look at him if he were to walk past right now. 30 feet in length, and he could weigh up to 6 tons. Again, a huge creature. Now, another group that are not technically the dinosaurs, but are still fascinating to look at, are the pterosaurs. Who knows what the pterosaurs were? The flying reptiles, yes. And this was one of the tiniest ones. This guy, his wingspan was only about 5 feet across. His body was only about 1.5 feet long from head to tail. So he was one of the smallest of them. But one of the better known pterosaurs is the pteranodon. And this guy had a length, his body length of about 3 feet, wingspan up to 23 feet. But he only weighed 44 pounds. He was not very big. In fact, if you took the wings off of this guy, he probably would look about the size of a goose waddling past if you took the wings off of him. This next one is the real eye catcher. Who can pronounce that name? The what? Quetzalcoatlus. Quetzalcoatlus. He was probably the biggest of the pterosaurs. This guy was huge. 16 feet from head to feet, and his wingspan was up to 48 feet across, which means this guy was equal or larger than an F-4 Phantom jet. That's how big this guy was. Now, imagine this guy flapping over your head. What's the first reaction you would have to one of these things? Mine, I would pray he had no indigestion with his last meal. You know the old ditty, birdie, birdie in the sky. I hope he's in good shape when he goes by me. Here's another group. This is technically not a dinosaur either, but lived at the same time. This one is one of the plesiosaurs. They were a whole class of reptiles that lived in the water. There were several different groups. The plesiosaurs and the mosasaurs were the most dominant groups. And the plesiosaur, we're going to come back to this guy later on, they're known to have a little head, big long neck, long tail, kind of a big body in the middle. The mosasaurs had a short head, short neck, and kind of a big body. So they're distinctly different from each other. But the plesiosaurs lived in the oceans. They were pretty big. They could get up to 56 feet long, and these guys could weigh up to 10 tons. So again, if you're dealing with a warm-blooded creature, these guys could have been eating an awful lot to keep a body like that going. Now, everybody knows this one, right? The Allosaurus. He was a small, supposed meat eater. He was only up to 2 tons, length of 35 feet, height 15 feet, so he'd be bigger than us, and he's not a guy I'd want to hang around a whole lot with. if he were around nowadays, just because I'd be just too afraid to be near him. But the allosaur was one of the carnosaurs that came along earlier. How many of you saw Jurassic Park? The first movie. I haven't seen, well, I did see bits of the second ones and the third ones because my kids saw them. But that first one was a pretty good story, and it was interesting with the dinosaurs in it. But it's called Jurassic Park. But what was one of the main dinosaurs in that movie? Yeah, T-Rex from the Cretaceous period. If they did that movie right, they should have had an Allosaurus in there. But it's not as dramatic to have a 2-ton creature running after you as it is to have a 30-ton creature like a T-Rex chasing you down. You know what I'm saying? So this probably isn't a surprise to you. Jurassic Park was not scientifically accurate. I don't want to burst your bubble, but it just wasn't there. Stegosaurus is another cool one. And this kind of illustrates how little people really know about dinosaurs. Where are the plates on this guy? They run along the backbone. Where are they supposed to go? Nobody knows. They found a fairly complete Stegosaurus that was kind of crushed flat, and it had these things along the backbone, but not attached to the skeleton. And so they assumed that they went along the backbone, but no one's really sure where they go. And there's another oddity about dinosaurs, too. Do any of you bought any of the little tiny perfect dinosaur kits? Have you ever even heard of them? It's a little place in Canada called Somerville House Publishing made these little models, very accurate little skeletal models of dinosaurs you could snap together as 7 or 8 pieces. And I wish I'd have brought some with me, and I just clean forgot them, but they're really cool to look at because they're very accurate reproductions of the skeleton of various dinosaurs. They've done a Brachiosaurus, they've done T-Rex, Stegosaurs, Triceratops, and several others, even the Velociraptors that were popular from Jurassic Park. And they all have the same characteristic, the front legs. Now think back to when you've seen dinosaur skeletons in a museum and you see the front legs, the front limbs on all of the quadruped dinosaurs. Where are they? Anybody remember? I'm testing your memory on this one. You have a scapula that's sitting over the rib cage, and the forelimbs are attached to that scapula. And that's how they do it. Is that where it's supposed to go? It looks nice because you get a creature like this with legs in the front, like we would expect a creature to have legs in the front. But again, no one's really sure where those legs are supposed to attach to the dinosaurs. It's not common to see free-floating scapulas in creatures with a leg attached to the free-floating scapula over a rib cage, especially something that's 2 tons, especially something here. Well, he's bipedal. And especially something like this that's 35 tons. Now imagine these forelimbs supporting a good chunk of that 35-ton weight with a free-floating scapula over the rib cage. The hind legs are fixed into the hip, which is part of the backbone, but the front legs are just floating over the rib cage. Does that sound functional? No, but nobody else knows where to put it, so that's where you see them. Next time you see these see these things on display in a museum, check that out. Look at that. So it shows you how little